level. And the last 14 years at the post-graduation level, it was very tough for me to kind of transit from, the transition was very tough initially. Because as you know, we are a traditional chalk and talk teachers. And from chalk and talk, we came to click and talk with the ICT. And then now, because of the pandemic, it is act and talk. You should be knowing where the camera is, what is the lighting on your face, and what are the voice modulations on the other side. So this normally used to be done by actors. Now it has become, no, we have to do it as teachers. And as teachers, we have navigated all these phases of our journey. Just like the way your title says, navigating COVID. Navigating, for a teacher to navigate COVID through digital mode is again a challenge. It's not so easy. But as teachers, technology cannot replace us. That is the only comfort that we have. Whatever you do, technology cannot replace us. Anyway, we should be well versed with the technology so that we also make a presentation through technology. That's fine. Initially, it was very, very difficult for me, but now as things, I think, is it, okay, I have to share screen now once again. Share. Can you see this now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's visible, sir.
Fine. I'll commence from here now. Okay. Yes, this is a typical case of excessive diversification. As you know, when he entered, till the time he entered airlines business, he was one of the most dynamic businessmen that the country has ever produced. He was also called as a man with the Midas touch. He was also said, anything that he touches turns into gold. And when he launched this Kingfisher Airlines, it was with much fanfare. He said, I want to sell lifestyle to Indian middle class. I want to give Indian middle class an international experience in domestic flights. He said, I am in hospitality business, not in transportation business. Very, very tall claims, very exuberant, flamboyant businessman. And we all thought that he would, and initially also, whoever who has traveled in Kingfisher may have very good experience. And he said, I will handpick the pilots and the air hostesses myself. I'll be in the selection panel. So such was the kind of intensity and commitment that he showed initially. But what transpired thereafter was something, completely, it was a game changer. But there are some certain people who say that you can't call it as a fraud only because he had all the good intentions to give very good, experience on the flights. But unfortunately, he entered the market at a very wrong time when the ATF fuels were all-time high and 98% of the operating cost was on the fuel. So therefore, his timing of his entry was wrong. Secondly, he entered through taking huge debt from the public sector banks, a consortium of banks. And all our capital structure theory says, when you are going for an alien area, an area which you don't have expertise, it is always appropriate and prudent that you use equity because you get that cushion. Say, for all the businesses to take off and have a smooth cruise, it takes time. And if it is equity based, then it will give that cushion. But he wanted to change the theory. He wanted to change all the capital structure theory and traditional rate of theory. Then I will do it only with the, probably if he had been successful, then there would have been an exception to those theories. And this would have been an example as an exception. But it so happened that he could not sustain the pressure of the debt. He could not sustain the pressure of the interest payment, which became due every 6 months. And as you know, interest payment is a legal obligation. Everybody, he was like, staring at the insolvency within 2 or 3 years of his operations. And he did another strategic mistake, some people say. It is subject to discussion again. He took he acquired Deccan Airlines in a reverse merger only because he wanted to get into international route. In order to get into international route, at least 5 years you should operate in the domestic. He did not want to wait for it. Captain Gopinath was very, very happy to sell it off. And then see, what was the significant part of it? See, originally Kingfisher was segmented in a very affluent and elite market, but with lesser price. But Air Deccan was a low cost carrier. That positioning was completely different. The positioning of Kingfisher and positioning of Air Deccan were completely contrast to each other. So this was not being well taken by the market, and they started feeling that there must be some strain in the business, and that is the reason he's trying all these strategic alliances. But you could see how it went down, because he had to service debt, and this is the amount of money that he owes to the bank, and now he has already eloped the country. He was a Rajya Sabha member, and he's in London, and we are trying to get him back, making all the rules. And let me tell you, whenever all these things happen, law actually gives the correction. There will be corrections in the law. In fact, SEBI Act came into picture only after Harshad Mehta scam. Whenever there is a scam, whenever there is a wrongdoing, law kind of corrects itself in order to see that it tightens the noose on these culprits. But with with Vijay Mallya's case, this is the argument that I have. His intentions were genuine only because at that point in time, it was a pure genuine business loss, which he did not accept. As there was a saying, failure goes to their head. Success goes to their head. Failure goes to their head. Once a fail adre, because of, see, these are all Indian, and as you know, India is an emotional country. They don't want to accept the failure, and they will, make good money to chase the bad money. There is one more phrase called as good money chasing the bad money. They start pumping in good money to chase the bad money without accepting the defeat. They don't want to accept the defeat because there is some egoistic, business conglomerates in India, and one such person is Vijay Mallya. He did not want to accept it. He tried his best, and then he took some legal loophole and went outside the country, and sooner or later he will be booked back. Let us see what the law says as to how to bring him back. So this is how the company, sometimes you get into a business with a good intention, do all that is right, but unfortunately, just because you are there in the business, market need not respond so. You may have a bad business idea, or your timing of entry is wrong, and in spite of having good intentions, still you end up with failure. But if you don't accept it, then you'll be losing. You'll be abusing public money even more. And whatever he did after this scam is subject to scrutiny. But before what he did in his earlier businesses, he was doing extraordinarily well in fertilizers and Kingfisher, spirits and all those things, right? The entire country was in good spirits. But unfortunately, he ended up, I conquered everything on the earth. Let me touch the sky. That has become his Waterloo. Okay. So this can go on and on. See, there are many scams that has happened in the recent past. My question is not looking at the scams as such. My, what I want to drive home is there are connections between economics and these corporate evidences. So look at it from a holistic perspective. You will try to understand. Now, this one case I would like to just tell you, it's a case on information asymmetry. This is insider trading. It's a case of insider trading. I think Some of you might be knowing about it. No, he is a person, you just see his record for sake. So he's a Kolkata-based man, and his educational background, you can see, is an IIT engineer, MBA, Harvard Business School. Immediately joins a McKinsey company, becomes a worldwide IMD. He was the founder of Indian School of Business, which is in Hyderabad, which is touted as even a stronger, very reputed than IIMs. And then he was a serving member of Goldman Sachs, Procter and Gamble. You see his global health, education, philanthropic activities. A man who cannot put anything wrong. Such is this is a kind of a CV that only 0.001% of the corporates will have. And this is how he is. But what went? His contribution to business, his contribution to global health. He was a member of the advisory council to Prime Minister of India. So with such a great, exposure that he has and the kind of a persona that he is, he was also subject to certain wrongdoing that he had to do, or in a lapse, for a lapse of concentration. How do you call it? You just tell me. I'll just tell you the story. So he was this happened soon after the global financial crisis. So Goldman Sachs is the company where he was the board member, and in that particular meeting, there was a decision taken. Warren Buffett, who is a well-known multimillionaire and philanthropist and an investment banker, he was about to invest around $15 billion into Goldman Sachs. So that was the meeting where that decision was taken. And this fellow, being a part of the board member, he had an opportunity to get that information prior it was made public. He was a board member. During the board meeting, he received a call from his friend called as Rajaratnam, who is again an investment banker, who was owning a company called as Galileo. And casually there was a talk, as you know, between the friends. Now, what's up? What's happening? You know that. Then he said it was a 60-second conversation. He said Goldman Sachs is now going to revive. No problem at all, because Warren Buffett is infusing this huge amount of money. And then he said, okay, I'll just later in the evening. This piece of information he parted with his friend. And Rajaratnam, who is a true businessman, and the market was about to close in 1.5 hours. He got this information. He knew that this is going to be made public tomorrow. Immediately, he bought the shares of Goldman Sachs before the close of the stock market that day. Tomorrow morning, this decision was announced. It all made headlines. And as you know, market efficiency, good information that you put into the markets absorbs that information and immediately adjusts the stock prices. Stock prices went up, and by afternoon, he sold major chunk of the shares. And within a gap of 12 to 18 hours, he made a huge profit, Rajaratnam, by getting this piece of information. Then SEC in America, unlike SEBI in India, started looking at the quantum of transactions that happened on that particular moment. And it came to know that one fellow by Rajaratnam is investing huge amount in the afternoon, and tomorrow morning he is selling it off, making neat profits. How can that be possible? And then they studied all his call history. And one of the call went to Rajat Gupta. And the investigation was done, and both were, of course, Rajaratnam committed a blunder, no doubt about that. But just because of that 60-second conversation, all the good things that he had done over a period of time, entire his life, gone to dust. And do you know, he was convicted of insider trading, and he received a prison sentence of 24 months in prison, followed by 1 year. And he was also ordered to pay a fine of 5 million. So therefore, careers can go awfully wrong, if you are not lawful. I'm making a statement here. You will be awful if you are not lawful. Lawful means LAWFUL. Correct, sir? Muralidhar.
Correct, sir.
Busy, administration busy. Okay, now this is the crux. Let us see. Now this was the discussion that we were making all through the first session. Whether our legal architecture, there's a saying in India, India is a over-regulated country but under-enforced. Let us see what are the latest, legal enactments that have taken place, or any provisions that have been added to the existing legal infrastructure, and let us see whether now going forward we will have some kind of hope that these kind of things will not happen. And with COVID around and with the technology getting a major boost, let us see whether we are driving towards a moral economy. $1 million question. Let me go through this. See, previously these corporate frauds were trialed under Indian Penal Code. But from 2008 and 9, there was a parliamentary standing committee that was constituted soon after this global financial crisis, where there was a spate of economic scandals. And they brought the definition of fraud under Companies Act, new Companies Act, 2013, in section 447. And they also created Serious Fraud Investigation Office in the same act. And do you know 447 includes the combination of many acts under IPC. 405, criminal breach of trust. 415, cheating. 465, forgery and falsification of accounts. You see any scandal for that matter, always the auditors and these fraudsters come together. So therefore, forgery is a part of accounting. Therefore, it was also brought under fraud. And see the punishment. I mean, at least 10 lakhs or 1% of the turnover, whichever is lower, and punishable by not less than 6 months and go up to maximum 10 years. Maximum punishment is sufficient. Okay. The provision fine cannot be less than the amount of fraud and may extend up to 3 times the fraud amount. Just see, Nirav Modi's fraud amount is 13,600 crores. The moment he is deported back to India, what is the maximum? Say 14,000 crores roughly. 14,000 into 3, you can fine up to such amount 3 times. And if it is public money that is in public interest that is involved, obviously all these frauds that I am talking about are all public companies, seeking money from the shareholders who are the public. Now it should not be less than 3 years. 3 years or 10 years. 3 years minimum, 10 years maximum. Then it is non-bailable, cognizable, and non-compoundable. Means you need not have to get a warrant to get a arrest. You can straight away go and arrest. How about the granting of bail? Is granting of bail easy now? No. As per this Companies Act 212 Act, it says bail can be given only if both the conditions are satisfied. One, public prosecutor has been given enough chance to oppose his release, and if the court is satisfied that this fellow, while on bail, will not commit any offense. So both we call it as twin condition. Only when both are met, then only you will be giving the. Now this is the game changer, I would say. It is a scheduled offense under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. You know that Money Laundering Act talks about proceeds of crime. Normally, it is all about the proceeds of crime because of murder, fraud, that is bribery, or say terrorism, or say narcotic drugs, and these are anti-national activities which are being done, what used to be tested under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. We call it as proceeds of crime. Now the fraud, the money that is siphoned off because of the fraud is also considered as proceeds of crime on line with them. Under this, ED, Enforcement Director, has the power to attach and confiscate property. Then, how about auditors? Now, auditors were getting, because it is like two faces of the same coin. Fraudsters on the one coin and the auditor on the other coin. But now, if it is a reporting duty of the auditors to report if there is any suspected fraud, it has to report to the central government. And if the auditor does not report, and he also connives with the fraudsters to commit the crime, as it is been the case right through all the cases. And that is the reason we jump into a conclusion that it's an accounting fraud. Accounting, as I said, came only late, but still, these are the people who have helped them, whether it is Arthur Anderson or other Power Water Cooper, whoever. These are the people who have done it. So even they are also called as, whatever the punishment that you give to the promoters or the people who have committed the fraud, these are equally guilty of the offense. So auditors can also be booked and imprisoned. Then another development, very recently as 2020, which talks about something called as forensic audit. Forensic audit can be initiated by SEBI suo moto or on the complaint given by any of the market participants the moment it smells a scam. This is called as the Brahmastra. It is to be seen. It's 2020 kind of a legislation. Forensic means whatever the audit report that is being generated and given will be taken as an evidence in the court of law. No more evidence is required. And in forensic audit nowadays, I think in the times to come, this will become a profession which is going to give a lot of employment, I believe, as the frauds go up. Because it's again a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary kind of a profession where he should know auditing, accounting, and also criminal psychology, investigation skills, and all those things. Then another act which was being passed in 2018 called as Fugitive Economic Offenders. And let me tell you, this act has come as a correction to people like Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya who fled the country. See, when people go out of the country, whatever the property that they have cannot be confiscated in their absence. But now this act is passed only to make it possible, even if they are out of the country, their properties wherever, whether in India or in abroad, can be confiscated if he is declared as a fugitive economic offender. Now, both these people have been declared as fugitive economic offender. Their properties in India and abroad have already been confiscated, and the rights and the titles of the property will vest in the central government. Now, as I said, these are the new acts, but as a correction to the existing, they have seen the loopholes in the system and they fled the country thinking that their property is safe because they are not there in the country. Now, they need not be there in the country. If they are declared as fugitive offender, then their property can be confiscated. Then Competition Act. Say, I would take it as a passing reference, even if it is not directly connected to frauds as such. But this is again a landmark act which was passed in 2002 as a correction to MRTP Act, as you know. The only point of difference between that and this is it will favor competition, and it has established a commission called as Competition Commission of India to prevent adverse effect on competition. In case if at the macro level, see, at the micro level, at the consumer's level, there is Consumer Protection Act, no doubt. If you buy a good or a service, and if you have got, have a problem with that, you can always approach at the micro level the tribunals. But at the macro level, in order to see that there is a fair competition and promoting and sustaining competition in the market is the objective of this act, and to protect consumers' interests at the macro level and ensuring freedom of trade. Now, there are these three very important sections that I would like to know. They want to prevent anti-competitive agreements among the top companies, leading to appreciable adverse effect on competition. I'll give you a few cases here. I think you'll be able. And prevention of dominant position. Now, earlier it was called a monopolistic position. Now, in this case, it is slightly worded differently. We call it as dominant position. Nothing wrong to have dominant position. Nothing wrong to have monopoly, as long as you are not abusing the monopoly. So it is more slighter, tilted towards consumers' interest and ensuring higher competition so that consumers get the best. And regulation of combinations. This is mergers and acquisitions that takes place. Again, CCI comes into picture here. In case somebody files an application that this is going to make them enjoy the dominant position, then it has to be regular. One thing that I want you to look at is the words there. For the first two, it is prevention, complete abolition. Whereas for the last, it is regulation. There is a change between them. Then a few cases that I've just talked about. See, there was a case between a cartel of cement manufacturers, 13 companies. They were trying to fix the price, making an anti-competitive agreement between them, and they used to fix the price. And once they fix the price, as you know, these are all larger companies coming together. They enjoy the dominant position, and they abuse that dominant position by fixing the prices in the way that they want. And the Builders Association opposed it, filed a complaint with CCI, and it was ruled that the cartel of cement manufacturers abused their dominant position. They created an anti-competitive agreement, and they were made to shell out 16,000 crores as fine. That fine part was not there earlier in MRTP, but now the fine is very huge here. Another one, which I was actually stunned to see Tata Motors in it, because in all my discussions that I've done so far, Tata Motors has happened to be something which is an exception in the rule. But I don't know. Unfortunately, it is a case where 14 automobile companies led by Tata Motors. As you know, in automobiles, there are spare parts which are genuine spare parts which have been sold by the companies themselves. And the services also being done by the companies themselves, because they say they will not give spare parts. They will give spare parts only when the services are also being done there only. Now, in this case, they were charging huge amount for services. Some of the consumer forum went to CCI saying that services are available of fine was levied on these 14 automobile companies, including Tata Motors. Now, this is the act which has come into picture. Now, Sun Pharma acquired Ranbaxy. Both are giants. Sun Pharma is a giant. And PVR acquired DLF. PVR is a cinema theater, multiplexes. They acquired DLF was operating only in the North India. PVR was in the South India. They acquired, and all the others, Inox and other competitors went to CCI saying that this will lead to a dominant position. They may charge whatever prices they want. But since it is a regulation, a combination, CCI held that, okay, we are okay with this acquisition, but you should not do any more acquisition for the next 5 years. And that is the reason in the previous slide I said regulation of combination, not prevention. They will put certain conditions. Yes, 2 to 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you can do so. Not more than that. Within 4 years, 5 years, you cannot do any more acquisitions, so that all the other players are also in the equal field. And then one more case that I saw very recently about ICAI. Now, these people were given the training. They were giving training after people acquire CA degrees. Some professional hours that they need to put in order to keep their certification going. And they were running the courses. And parallelly, see, people who completed their CA had to go to ICAI only. There were certain other associations, they wanted to give the similar kind of training. But ICAI was not allowing them to do, saying that they enjoy that statutory power to do so. Then the other associations went to CCI, and ICAI said, say, I'm a statutory position and I have to give. Then it said, CCI said, the decision was that even though you are giving training, you're not giving training free of cost. You are an enterprise. You are an enterprise. Why? The enterprise has got a bigger meaning. Any entity that makes money, makes profit is an enterprise, and that comes under. You cannot have that domain. You, if at all, there is an equally competent association of chartered accountants willing to give training, we have the competence, you should allow them. You cannot hold it as a monopoly. So I say, lost the case. And Geo, this is the crux of all. Now, tell me, having Geo case in the MRTP era and the Competition Act era will have different consequences. In Competition Act era means now, when all others went, these people made headlines. Now they are ruling the roost, as you all know. Are they? Don't they come under the provisions of abuse of dominant position in Competition Act? They did. Many of the competitors went to CCI, asking them to, these people are, how do you enjoy dominant position? You are denying entry for others to come into the market. And the existing players are leaving the market because of your entry, because you are so dominant. But on the flip side, what are the benefits you are giving to the customers? You are giving highly technologically advanced services to your players. You are giving it at a smaller, lesser cost, and your networking is very strong right through the country. See, on the pros and the cons, the merits and the demerits. If the merits are more than the demerits, as it was ruled under Geo, they are not abusing the dominant position as of now. As of now, consumers are benefited. Therefore, Geo can operate. They are in dominant position, no doubt about that. So, being in dominant position is not faulty. Whereas in case of MRTP, being in dominant position, enjoying monopolistic position was wrong. But now this is slightly different. Having dominant, being in a monopolistic state or being in a dominant position is fine. What is not fine? Abusing it is not fine. As long as you don't abuse, you can still be in dominant position. So these are some of the acts, and the most important one, I would say, is a landmark piece of judgment, the piece of legislation that has been enacted in 2016. I think this act, given, if this act is going to, rebuild itself in order to accommodate all the flaws in the market, I think this has an answer to all the potential scams and frauds. Now, what is this? See, we are talking about businesses. No, business market is not a very accommodating machine. Just see that. It won't provide return just because you need them. Just because Tata are there, just because Anil Ambani is there, who is a brother of Mukesh Ambani, it does not really give you high returns. Just because Vijay Mallya went into airlines, who never tasted failure at all, doesn't mean that he will not become a failure again. There are good business ideas, good business proposals, but unfortunately, they don't pass through the market test. There is nothing wrong with the idea. There is nothing wrong with the business. It is only that the market views it differently. Market dynamics are different. Then what to do? Like all these fraudsters who did, when they ended up with failures, they put good money to chase the bad money, and the loss accumulated in so much that all the market participants who are a part of that particular company lost their money. Instead, what you do, you know that yes, something is not going, this is not going the way I wanted. Let me press the panic button now itself. Let me stop. Let me get dignity in insolvency. See, This is there is a social stigma for insolvency and bankruptcy. No, ಪಾಪರ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದಾನೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪಾಪ ಅವನ ತಲೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಟವಲ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಸುತ್ತಕೊಂಡು ಓಡಾಡಬೇಕಾಗೋದು. See, I mean, a person who is insolvent treated differently in society. As you know, Jamindar system where slavery was there. If a person takes a loan and he does not repay, his entire generation would be lost, doing the services of the master, the landlord. So it was a social stigma as such, being insolvent and bankrupt was a social stigma. Now this piece of legislation tries to give dignity to that stigma. It says, if a business idea is not viable, be it, don't worry, stop there itself. Don't take it along. Wash your hands now itself, so that the further loss is arrested. So this is the spirit of this law. It says it offers a uniform, comprehensive insolvency legislation covering all companies, LLPs, and individuals. The moment you see that there is a strain in this business, anybody can approach National Company Law Tribunal, NCLT. Who can approach? Who are the parties? Which are all the parties who can approach? Under section 7, 9, and 10, operational creditor can initiate. Who is an operational creditor? A creditor who has become a creditor as a part of the business operations, services, those supplied materials and services, and the company has failed to return the money on time, they can immediately apply for insolvency resolution with NCLT. Who else can apply? Financial creditor. Who is financial creditor? As you know, all the people who have given the fund, debt, the banks, the financial institutions, the bondholders, debenture holders. If you make a delay in the payment of their interest and repayment of capital, then if you default even once, these people can file a resolution proceedings in NCLT. Or the beauty of this law is this one: corporate debtor. Who is corporate debtor? The promoter himself, the person who floated this business. If he feels, I have entered at a wrong time, there is no way that I can go through with this business idea, he can only initiate, I want insolvency. So it offers dignity to insolvency. Operational creditors, financial creditor, and corporate debtor, all of them. And a resolution will take place. What is the resolution? One is, the first part of the resolution is this NCLT, the Company Law Tribunal, will appoint a professional called as insolvency professional. He will take charge of that company once CIRP is accepted, and he will look at whether this is a business idea. He will consult the consortium of creditors, which includes all of these people, and tries to see whether this company can be resolved. Can we give a resolution plan? Can a bigger company or some other company take over this company, as Tata Steel took over Bhushan Steel? Or there is no way that this company can be repaired, then go for liquidation. And there is a thorough professional called as insolvency professional, who has got all the, he should be a CA, he should have certain number of experience and all those things. Then only he should pass an examination conducted by IBBI. So he will be appointed, and he will see. See, the code recognizes that insolvency is an outcome of market forces. It has got twin remedies in respect of failing firms. One, rescue a viable firm and liquidate an unviable firm. This is what I was saying. If there is a firm which can be rescued, that IP will do that. Or there is no way that can be rescued, you go for liquidation, so that it provides for reorganization of business in a time-bound manner. It gives a time-bound, it's 330 days now. Within 330 days, all the entire proceedings should be over. And it protects creditor rights while balancing the interests of all other stakeholders and enables equal distribution of harnessed value. So there is a person who takes into consideration all the obligations that are to be paid, and he tries to balance the interests of all the stakeholders, so that once he closes it down, either resolution or liquidation, the losses which would otherwise happen, if at all this is not being done, what would happen? They will just carry on without recognizing the fact that this is going to be a failing business. They just go on and then do the fraud and then do accounting manipulation and finally say hands up. By then, so much of crores have been lost. But now it is not so. The moment you make one default, yes, CRP can be initiated. You can just see this before and after, especially during the COVID period. This 6, 7, and 9, that is, filing of insolvency proceedings were suspended as a part of the moratorium that the government offered, and that is the reason you can see that in the first quarter it is less. Otherwise, you can just see how many proceedings have been initiated. All these would have gone into very big frauds if you had allowed them to just go on with their business in spite of making losses. But because of this act, it gives a ray of hope for all the stakeholders. In the event of a failing firm, there is a government agency which takes into care and tries to do the equitable distribution of whatever the value that company has, so that the losses are minimized. So that the losses are minimized. Now, these are the measures taken by Government of India during COVID. As you know, 20 lakhs crore stimulus packages for MSMEs, because all these MSMEs were subject to initiation of corporate resolution proceedings. As you know, that business came to a grinding halt during COVID, and they suspended 7, 9, 10 till in this slide it is up to 25th of December. It extended up to 31st March 2021. Now again it has regained. Suspension was released, and all these NCLT were taken away. But these were the measures taken only to give some wither of hope for companies who are under loss. Otherwise, they would come under IBC. They would come under IBC. So any loss that has happened under IBC was not considered as loss. Now it could be taken as loss. So now this legislation, there are people who say that during this COVID crisis, that should not have been done, because you are just putting the companies on a ventilator. Once the sections which have been suspended are released, then anyway they will get into ventilator. But now looking back, we see that how the economy is bouncing back. I think suspending insolvency during the COVID period was a prudent move. Anyway, the companies who would anyway go into liquidation will definitely do. But as the economy has picked up now, I say hopefully that things would improve. Now, before I go to the last slide, this is my address and this is my contact details. I would like to ask you this question. All the acts that I just give you the highlights. I have not gone into the details. I just give you, just to tell you which way the acts regarding the companies are going towards. Are they sufficient? Are they sufficient? Or can we say that yes, we are, going in the track? It may take some more time, but we can just be hopeful that things would. Or is it the case that COVID will even increase these kinds of wrongdoings, or whether this is a time where COVID will lead us to a more moral economy with the advent of technology, with laws around? Can we say that yes, we are moving towards a more prudent, moral, ethical economy, in future. This is exactly what I want to listen from you, because you're all teachers. Teaching the teachers has always been a very tough job. The toughest job is to train the trainers. Huh? Whether these legal trends that you see, the judicial architecture as you see, are they sufficient enough to plug the loopholes in the corporate system? Or do you think this is just a beginning, still a long way to go? The intentions of the policymakers are in the right direction, at least over a period of time. It all comes by experience. As I said, after global financial crisis, 8-9 joint parliamentary committee, then 2013 Companies Act, and then going further, all these acts which have taken, all the modifications that have been come about, 2018 Fugitive Economic Offender Act, IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So are we in the right direction, or can we still be, can we be positive, or what do you say? Whether during the COVID times, whether it breeds lemons, or will it weeds out lemons? Breeds lemons or weeds out lemons? Are we going towards a merit economy?
Sir.
Yes, madam.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
So we know that so many laws were there as before. So, and each and every law is having its own loopholes. So, and the crime will be happened by using those loopholes. So the persons who are going under the crimes, they are finding out what are the loopholes are there in the laws. So whatever may be the law initiated, but they are finding out only what are the loopholes we can utilize to make the fraud. So that's why we are in the right direction. But the the person who are doing the fraud, he is also searching out of how can we make utilize of those loopholes in the laws. So that's why it is a better way to do the laws. How can we it is a minimizing the loopholes is very better way to find out the solutions for such a fraud, sir.
I understood what you said, but do you think, because we are talking about advances in commerce and management,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To navigate this crisis, this is the thirst area of this particular refresher course. Now, can we be optimistic? Is what my can we be because
yes, sir. Of course, sir. We are in the positive way. We are in the positive way. There are so many laws has been framed. We are framing the every year, and in after the every fraud, there will be the new laws has been framed.
That's what I said. All the laws have come as a correction.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All the laws have come as correction. For every problem that plagues industry and business,
yes,
there must be correction in the law.
Yes, sir.
So can law be a panacea for all this, or as in the contract theory, Oliver Hart says, it should become a lifestyle. Morality should become a lifestyle.
Yes, sir.
A functional behavior should become your DNA. And as Ravikant sir was telling before the end of the first session, it is there all over the place. It's not just limited to corporates. Can we apply to ourselves as teachers? Are we also displaying dysfunctional behavior? Or are we creating value to the student? If I were to talk about the kind of teachers that I have had an opportunity to listen to in my days, and the technology, we also had an opportunity to be with the very best teachers, old time teachers, and also the techno-savvy teachers also. So we are at the middle. I'm not saying you're all there. You're quite well versed with using technology. But whether the intent of teaching, research are the two faces of the same coin, right?
Yes.
Are the two faces of the same coin. And I would put teaching 1 point ahead of research.
Yes, sir.
It's a personal, I'm not imposing my view on anybody.
Yes, sir. Teachers having both the faces.
Yes.
So someone is giving the importance to research work and someone is giving the importance to value given to the students.
So therefore, giving importance to research work should not be treated as dysfunctional behavior.
Yes, sir. Yes,
as
sir.
long as the outcome of that research is a value addition to your own students.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Not to your CV. Not just to your CV. You add it to your CV.
Yes, sir.
Add it to your academic performance indicators.
Yes, sir.
But what is the value that you create to the students inside the class?
Yes, sir. Our input what we are finding from the research, we can input it to the students. That's the value added.
Unless you're not going to do a spectacular research which is going to change the face of the society.
Yes.
At least you do something which can add value to your teaching in the classroom. I have this statement to make, all good teachers are always good researchers. And all good researchers need not be good teachers. I may be wrong.
No, sir, it's right.
See, being a good researcher is not a precondition to be a good teacher. I will put it the other way around. But being a good teacher, you'll always do a good research because the research happens in the classrooms. What we learn from our students, what we learn from our students, their questions, their inquisitiveness is much more than what we learn from any other source. That is how I look at my teaching profession.
New things happens in the classroom only, sir.
No, it is subject to, again, discussion, it's not concrete. We are in social sciences, one good thing about social sciences is there is no such